Welcome everyone to the wonderful session today. Thanks to Rajiv and Varun. We have the entire CI ecosystem with us today. So welcome to all CI members. Welcome to all YI members, especially from Delhi and Kolkata. Welcome to the members from IWN and the most special welcome to all the Yuva students who are here to listen to Sir. Mr. Francis is a very well-known author. He has written the book Ikigai that we will be talking about today. And one interesting fact about him, he's traveled to India a lot of times, and India has inspired him somehow in becoming a writer. We'll get to know more about that soon. Ikigai, a Japanese word for reason to live or a reason to just jump out of bed in the morning. It's a place where your needs, desires, ambitions, and satisfactions meet, a place of balance. Small wonder that finding your Ikigai is closely linked to living longer. So, what is your Ikigai? How do you find it? And how to value what we have and cherish the now? For asking more questions to Mr. Francis, let me welcome Vikram. He's the founder of Singularity Institute company, which works in various multidisciplines. Over to you, Vikram.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Francis. Thank you so much for being on, for agreeing to be a part of this YI talk. For the last few months, YI across, young Indians across the country have been trying to engage all the members into very deep, authentic conversations, because this is really the time, like in your book says, this is the time to be anti-fragile. Yeah, and to be able to find our Ikigai. So a big welcome to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vikram. It's a great pleasure for me to be with Young Indians and to have this talk today. I will talk only now a couple of minutes. I think it's more interesting that every participant can put a question, can comment something about own projects, about doubts of the book, or everything that has to do with purpose. Actually, as our presenter said, I have a very deep relationship, emotional relationship with India, because it was in your beautiful country that 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I started writing in the middle of a long trip in South India. In the beginning, I wrote my first book, and then I came back a couple of times, but for me, Indian authors like Krishnamurti, like Ramana Maharshi, ancient ones like Buddha, they were always an inspiration for me. And so when with Hector decided to undertake this investigation in Ogimi, north of Okinawa, interviewing all the centenarians, we explored a lot about purpose. We will talk about that today. But this Indian philosophy of the roots from other kinds of religions. For instance, in Japan, they have Zen philosophy. It's a kind of Buddhism, but it comes from India. They have a lot of meditation techniques, but the origin is also in the Indian source. So for me, it's very interesting and very nice now to talk about Ikigai with all this wonderful audience of young Indians. And just to define a little the word, you have said, okay, Ikigai, it's formed by two different terms in Japanese. Iki, that means life, and gai means worth doing something. So Ikigai would be a life worth to be lived. So it means a life with purpose, a life with meaning, something that we feel that gives sense to our life, that gives a reason to live. And I hope we can discuss this topic today for all the participants who have read the book or who are undertaking some change in life. I will be very happy to answer and comment every comment that you say.
Okay. Yes, no, absolutely, Francis, because 2020 has been such a year of transformation for the entire world, you know, and one's always been saying that we are in the same storm. We might be in different boats, but we are definitely in the same storm. And this is been the time I was reading a book till 1 hour back, and I was really resonating with this whole idea of, you know, what when you researched on Nassim Nicholas Taleb's work on and what is anti-fragility, and you know, I also found that a lot of your work is based out of positive psychology. You have named, you've dedicated an entire chapter to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and his work on flow. Yeah, so, and this is really the time for all of us to really question ourselves and to be able to find our purpose and to take this, you know, new world, new rules. So really just step out and yeah, make these new rules. So I actually jotted down a few questions, and you know, one of the questions which really came up was that you have traveled extensively in Japan, and obviously the inspiration of this book came from Japan, from Okinawa, and you've traveled extensively in India. There are a lot of parallels which have been drawn.
Yes.
Yeah. In spite of that, the World Happiness Report came out recently, and Japan ranks very high, and India ranks 144.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As somebody who has observed cultures, as somebody who has observed both these cultures, traveled here, why do you think there has been this difference?
In the life expectancy, the longevity of the countries.
Also the happiness quotient of people.
The level of happiness. So India is 44, you say?
144.
144.
Out of 150 countries.
Wow. It seems difficult to understand that, because always when I am traveling in India or talking to Indians, they seem very happy, very positive thinkers. Because I would say that there are some parallelisms between Japan and India, but as a matter of character of the folk, of the people, it's two opposite extremes. The Japanese culture is very inner oriented. The Japanese typical citizen is shy, is reserved, is living indoors, and the Indian country is familiar, is outdoors, is social, is communicative. So I would say these are two aspects of spirituality. The Japanese spirituality is very silent. The Zen dojo, the culture of haiku, the culture of tea, silence, concentration, mindfulness, and the Japanese and the Indian culture, they have also all these elements, but they are very communicative one each other. Family is very important in the culture, but also the gathering of people in an ashram, the relationship with the master, it's very different. Because of that, I don't believe that this ranking of happiness is very precise, because I think the middle Indian is much happier than the middle Japanese. That's my observation.
Okay, no, that's actually a very interesting perspective. Yeah, we have actually a comment from a gentleman called Mark Edwards, who's writing in from Mallorca in Spain, who's also traveled there. He says Indians seem very content to me. So actually, that's, you know, that is lovely. What led you to this project? You know, when Hector got in touch with you, yeah, what attracted you to this project?
I think best projects in life come by chance, but you must be aware of opportunities. It happens the same with love. If you are alone and you are looking for a couple, you are looking for love, you must have your eyes open and your senses and your heart open, and it will come the day less expected. So it happened the same with this. I was traveling to Japan every year because of my work, writing articles, doing documentation. I had written already a novel about Japan called Wabi Sabi. And then I knew Hector, and he was feeling a bit sad. He was in a bad time of his life because he had some health problems that he couldn't get rid of them. And then we decided to go together to some faraway place to do a trip, doing something interesting. So it was in the beginning a trip of friends. And then Hector is married to a woman of Okinawa, and his father-in-law said, why don't you come to Okinawa and travel north the island? Because north of the island is the village of the centenarians. It's the village, the place in the world with highest grade of longevity and more centenarians every 1,000 inhabitants. Why don't you go there and know to these people? These must be very wise people. And then we get motivated with this idea, and we started contacting the institutions of this village, because this is not like Spain. In Spain, if you want to make some kind of investigation, you go directly to the place with a microphone and a camera, and you don't ask for any permission. In Japan, everything has a protocol, and then we contact the town hall and then the council of all people. And after many months, they say, okay, you can come, you can interview all these centenarians. So we got there and we made 100 interviews, more or less, asking them, why do you have so much motivation to live a long life? Why do you take care of your health and you do exercise and you still work with 100 and 105? And they said, many of them, that they had an Ikigai in life. So they had a reason, something that was a purpose that was motivating them. I must say that these Japanese people is totally different from the typical Japanese citizen of Tokyo, Osaka, or another city. This is a rural village. These people work in the fields, working in the garden. It's full of fruit trees. So it's a very simple life, what is done there. And these people have a lot of relationship with neighbors. They are like a clan, they are like a big family. And so it helps also the social unity, the sense of community, that they don't feel alone, they feel motivated, and they do many things with other people.
I think that is so important in today's life, to actually feel a space of inclusion and community and tribe. And somewhere along the line, we might have forgotten that in some cultures. Like, there is a direct comparison with very with cultures where there is a lot of emphasis on the individual, the I, the me, the myself, and whereas there are some cultures where there's a huge bonding or a sense of community, a sense of tribe. Yeah. Why do you think we might be losing that in some spaces across the world?
Yes, the world is becoming every time more individualistic, and and actually the social media and the new technologies have helped that, because in one hand we are more connected than ever, so you can talk with thousands of people every day and put a lot of messages in any platform that you have in your cell phone or in your tablet. But we are more alone than ever, because you have contact with many people, you receive a lot of inputs, but you have very few analogical contact, looking somebody to the eyes, being together with this person for a cafe, touching your friends, your loved ones. So we are becoming human beings with a lot of information, a lot of intercourse in communication, but less human in the sense that we do it everything from our room, from our table, maybe from bed, but we are not celebrating life together with the others as we used to do before. And what it causes is more cases of depression, more anxiety, and more feeling of isolation. That I have maybe 5,000 friends in Facebook, but when I feel discouraged for something, I don't have a person that I can tell it looking to the eyes of this person and having a hug. So we are in this kind of world right now.
Do you think that world is changing now that, we've all, like, with this pandemic, this global health crisis that we are a part of, I personally have seen this huge surge of human compassion as well as a huge surge of human selfishness in the last 6-7 months. Yeah, but people have actually come out and been extremely compassionate, like gone beyond their realms of duty. So do you see a difference pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Yes, the world is changing very quickly. It was so also before the COVID. Because of this life connected with social media, this has changed very much our relationships. And during the COVID, what has happened is that we had a lockdown, we had like a kind of global retreat, everyone was at home, and then the screens became even more important than before. So now we are like these people that we used to see in science fiction movies, that everything was virtual. We are coming to a more virtual life. And for instance, in Europe, people is teleworking right now. Before, the companies had a lot of opposition of this kind of work. The traditional companies in Europe, they wanted everyone to be in the office, everyone to be presential there, that the boss can see that you are there and can see what you are doing. With the pandemic, it has changed and many people is working from home, and that's good and that's bad, because it can mean also that you don't have a place to rest, that your house is your office and you work from Monday to Sunday and you don't have more private life. So we are in a moment of change and many things must be redefined, and we are going to find a solution and to find a new way for humanity.
Yeah, fingers crossed to that, Frances.
Yes.
Yeah. In your book, you have cited the works of Israeli neuroscientist Shlomo Brezhnitz, where he talks about confronting the brain to break habits.
Yes.
A very practical, and I completely understand, the mind plays games with us. What stops us from playing games back with the mind? Yeah. Can you share one or two or three or four ways in which we can challenge our mind and break these shackles of the mind?
Actually, there is a lot of scientific discussion about habits. Until now, many people thought it was 21 days. New author says that it depends on every person. 3 weeks is not enough for everyone.
Bono said that.
It can be 2 months or 3 months. And you can experience that if you have been a smoker. I was a smoker, and 3 weeks was not enough. After 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I started feeling secure as a non-smoker. And so I think there are people with more neuroplasticity than others. There are people with a lot of inner strength to put a new habit in their lives. And there are people who need more time and more repetition for that. But that's very clear that we are the result of our habits. And when we read the lives and the lifestyle of millionaires, of people who are reinventing the world, very creative people, more than millionaires maybe, they have different habits from the rest of humanity. For instance, these people, highly creative, they wake up every day 1 hour before than the rest of the world in the media. So it's normal to wake up at 5 or at 6, and the first hour of the day taking notes of what is the plan, what are the priorities for today. And they don't run from one place to the other. They don't have meetings or appointments that are not necessary. They are very aware of the value of time. So you can have a lot of money, but money cannot buy time. The time that you spend in a bad way don't come back. So I think the habits, if we have clear what we want to do with our life, Japanese have very good tools for that. They use what they tell Kaizen, is the philosophy below the big success of Toyota was the Kaizen, was encouraging all the employees to propose every day one thing that it's possible to do better. And if you put Kaizen in your life and you do every day at least one thing in the right direction, and you have 1% of better performance in 1 year, you have 100% of progress. So that's important. I would say that the bricks of the big house of future are made with habits. And so you must examine your life, what is helping you to develop your Ikigai and what is stopping you, and make the necessary changes.
It's interesting you cite Toyota, because Toyota has been the leader for Kaizen and lean management, and it's the whole kata mentality, which actually gets me to another question, Frances. So when I read your book, I smiled to myself because I saw a lot of similarities with how Miyamoto Musashi in the 16th century wrote the Book of Five Rings. How another book that I've followed for years is Hagakure by Yamamoto Tsuritamo, which is based on the art of the samurai in Bushido. And I found the writing style very, very similar. And I smiled, and that's when in my head it was like, okay, this man lived in Japan.
Actually, from the two authors, I have traveled every year to Japan during 9-10 years, but Hector lives there. And if you look at Hector, he moves like a Japanese, thinks like a Japanese, and writes like a Japanese. He's very analytic. He's not emotional. And he has read a lot of books like these ones you mentioned.
Yes.
So he's in soul a Japanese author. Yes.
Okay, that's brilliant. So do you think Ikigai, the whole notion of finding your passion, finding something worth doing, is it safe to assume that it derives a lot of its principles from the Bushido, from these classical concepts, classical martial systems, the classical way of living? We're not able to hear you.
All these martial arts, all these cultures of meditation, of self-work, the discipline and repetition and order is everything for them. And then you need to do it. When you have your Ikigai, when you have a plan, you must put it on a map and know every day which things you must do. But also, this search for the meaning of life, this connects with a modern author that is Shoma Morita, that maybe he was the first therapist working with the life purpose of passion. So when he received people who were depressed, who were anxious, who had different problems in their minds, in their souls, he was not only looking for the problem, he was looking for a purpose. And in the retreats that Morita was organizing, they were working together with people, working in the woods, talking each other, cooking together. So he understood that purpose is the key of happiness in life, and it's the key of a meaningful work. And then in Europe, we had Viktor Frankl, that maybe is the author that has worked in a deepest way this idea. In the middle of the 40s of last century, he developed logotherapy, and logotherapy is the therapy of the meaning, helping the patient to find a meaning in life. And all his efforts and direction in the therapy was help the other person to discover what is your inner engine, what is your purpose in life. Because if you have a purpose, even a little one, you can resist any adversities that life can bring to you.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of people, especially in their early 30s. Yeah. And, the beginning of every decade is troublesome for people when you enter your teens, when you enter your 20s, when you enter your 30s, when you enter your 40s. And I think one of the things which happen is a very high degree of stress. Stress is one of the highest silent killers around the world at this point of time. People are just dropping dead because, whether it's attacks, whether it is brain aneurysms. Why are we stressed out so much? Our lives have become simpler in terms of we have technology to help us. What is you mentioned about difference during the cave dweller time and the modern times. If you can just tell all our viewers, what is it, why is it that we are not able to handle our stress?
How to handle stress during the day? There are many factors. Maybe the first one would be not to do so many things as we do, because we are living in a moment in which it seems that we have something that the old Romans named horror vacui, fear to emptiness. So it seems that if we have a free hour, it's a big problem for us. And then if you see a calendar, the agenda of every person, there is an activity for every spot. Every half an hour, they have something. They have a call, they have a connection, they have a meeting, they have this, they have everything. And then we are afraid of being free with our mind. Actually, Pascal said that the big problem of human being is not being able to be alone into a room. And so this is one main source of stress, the multitasking. You go to the street of Bombay, of Delhi, any big city, and you see a lot of people with a cell phone and talking at the same time and with a lot of things in head. And so when we are in a permanent multitasking state, it's highly stressful, because this is okay if we do it for some minutes. For instance, when you are going to have an accident, you react with a lot of attention. But if this attention is all the time accompanying your life, it will be a problem, because then we get exhausted. That will be one thing. The too many activities, too much multitasking, and then also the interpretation that our mind is doing of reality. That's something that I think the Indian masters know much more than me. But many people is stressed because they are thinking what will happen in the near future. What will happen with my money, with my company? What will happen with the world? What will happen with health? And actually, this is not productive, this kind of thought, because uh, history has proved that it never happens what we expected. We were talking of climate crisis, we were talking about overpopulation, and we didn't expect the COVID. So when we are making these oracles, thinking in terrible things that can happen, actually they don't have anything to do with reality. And this is another thing that puts stress in our life. So to live without stress, like in this tiny village in Japan, I think main advices would be to put not so many things in your agenda, to have pauses and free times, to have a lot of analogic relationship with other people, because this is relaxing too, being with real people for half an hour, talking in front of a cafe, something like this, and giving time to the things that are important for you. Because normal thing for us, the freelancers and the people who work in the modern world, is to be always running from one urgency to the other. But there are some things that are important for us. And Stephen Covey said, what is urgent is important for someone else, but not for you. What is important for you, we tend to postpone it, to put it in the end of the list. And if there is something very important for you, and you are not doing that because you are always working for other priorities, then you get frustrated and you get anxious too, because you know you are not being fair with yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that
Sure.
come inside. Yeah.
Sure. Just one question away from this. In your book, you mentioned, that you conducted about 100 interviews while you were, and some of them you shared in the book, some of the findings, and you said that you intend to make a film about this.
We did a very small film of 18 minutes that it's in YouTube. I think it's only in Japanese and Spanish right now. I don't know if Vector did the English translation, but we wanted to present the main people that we interviewed in this village. Yes.
Okay. So, can you just share some of the lessons that you've learned out of interviewing all these people? You know, what is it? Because, you know, it's also somewhere, there was a beautiful phrase written in the book that some of these things are so simple that they're almost stupid.
Very simple, and it can sound like stupid, but it's not stupid when we examine it. So, for instance, for them, repetition is not boredom. It's not boring to repeat every day the same things. So for them, it's a big thing. It's a big happiness to wake up early with the sun, work in the garden, saying hello to the neighbors, saying goodbye to the children that go in a bus to the nearest school, inviting friends for lunch. So we could say that they do every day the same things.
Sure.
But the Czech writer Milan Kundera said that happiness is the desire of repeating. When you are very happy with your couple, you are very happy also doing your rituals as a couple, going together to the cinema, having a dinner, having a nice conversation, having a cup of coffee. And it's okay if every day is the same. So what we learned from them was that having a routinary life, having a life very similar one day from the other, is not a bad thing. Because the same Steve Jobs had a lot of this minimal view of life. And for instance, he had always the same shirt. It was black with a long neck, and it was from a Japanese designer, and he bought 100 because he said, if I wear always the same thing, I don't have to think in the morning. I know that this is my way of. Same with these people. They don't need to think what I am going to do today. They know it. And these are natural things that connect them with nature, with the neighborhood, with the Ikigai, with everything. And then we also learned that it's very good not to have 3G or 4G or 5G coverage, because there isn't there. So when we wanted to look for our WhatsApps, we had to step up a hill. There is a weather station, and there we had some connection. But there, these people is calling maybe in the cable phone, like our parents or grandparents. And when they want something, they go walking to the house of the neighbor. And this is a much more natural life. So what we learned was that a simple life is the ultimate secret of a happy life, and that you are going to liberate a lot of time. And what you need essentially to do your projects is not money, is not a lot of knowledge, you need time. If you don't have an empty canvas, you cannot draw something new. And this was very simple lessons, but very useful for us.
That's such a beautiful thought. If you don't have if you have an empty canvas, then you have space to draw. That is such a beautiful thought.
Thank you.
Okay, I had one more question, and then we will open it up. We already have quite a few questions coming up. There is this Nassim Nicholas Taleb. You've quoted him, and I started reading his book month and a half back, and I never got down to finishing it. Yours actually has been one of the fastest books I've read.
Okay. I feel proud. Thank you very much. I'm very happy.
Yeah, because I was able to relate to it. But Nassim talks about the next stage after resilience. Which is this anti-fragility, of finding meaning. Now, there is another author called David Kessler who talks about the 6th stage of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her 1962 book had talked about the 5 stages of grief, and along with David Kessler. And then David Kessler recently spoke about finding meaning. So to be able to draw parallels between Kessler's work and Nassim, who also talks about things. He wrote this book that anti-fragile, things that gain from disorder, as the next level to resilience. So would you share a lot of us, why is it important to find meaning? Why can't I stay at the level of acceptance? Why do I start paddling my boat why do I start paddling my boat?
Yes, I think this is very important what you said, but as Friedrich Nietzsche said, if you have a why to live, you can resist almost every how. And actually, anti-fragility, resilience, it's very similar concept. The word resilience was originally used for metals, in industry, not in psychology. It came afterwards. In industry, when you are working with metal, if a metal is very hard, but you can, when you try to bend it, you break it, this has no resilience. The resilient metal is the one that can melt and adapt to the situations. And then if we apply this to psychology, a resilient person is somebody that can adapt to any situation, adversity, from inside, from outside, everything that happens. And all of us know rigid people, people who have very square-headed view of life, and that when things don't happen like they expect, they suffer. For instance, if I write a WhatsApp and the answer that I get is not what I am expecting, maybe I think, oh, this person doesn't love me anymore, or maybe he is angry, or maybe I am going to lose this opportunity. And then the bad thoughts are going to go around, and we are going to suffer, and we are going to be weaker.
Yes.
Actually, resilience is the art of navigating the streams of adversity. And the creator, or the person who talked more about this is Boris Cyrulnik. Is a French neurologist who worked with a lot of children who had been abandoned in the communist countries. And he said that if you develop resilience, it means that you don't accept that the past will condition your future. So there are many people who have suffered abuse, poorness, familiar catastrophes, that many things have happened in a way that they didn't like it. But you have two possible options here. You can adopt the role of the victim, and then you are fragile, you are not resilient, or you can say, okay, this is my story. The Japanese have a very nice word for that, kintsugi, that love your scars, love what is imperfect in you, but I am going to decide how the story goes on. So resilience is learning from the grief of the past, but not letting it to condition what we are going to do. And this is very useful now in the times of the COVID. It has been a big disaster, but we have still the freedom of deciding many things that we are going to do.
It's like Aikido in many ways, you know, the whole,
Yes, yes.
yeah, to me, it's a lot of Aikido because, you know, it's, the trick is really in, you can't avoid falling. You know, the
No.
trick is the trick is to learn how do you fall and how do you stand up. You know, so thank you. So I have a question which is coming up. There are, you know, the people have already started asking questions. So one is, there is a gentleman who's asked, Harshvardhan, who's asked, what is the role of mindfulness in
Yes.
finding your Ikigai?
Yes. Actually, mindfulness is a modern word from America. It was developed by John Kabat-Zinn in a hospital in New York, but actually you Indians know mindfulness from 3,000 years ago, because it's a modern word for meditation.
Yes.
But what happens that the word meditation for the Western normal people, it can have some religious color. So they put mindfulness, but actually mindfulness means to have some control of your mind, to have some control of your emotions. If you are flowing with the emotions, it's difficult that you can develop your project, because then you are slave of anger, of sadness, of stress, of many things. You need to have a certain control of your head to be you the boss, and to be not the employee of the mind. So mindfulness is very useful. For instance, when we are working in something that we want to be excellent, we need to have a state of flow. You have mentioned Mihai, this big professor of Hungarian origin. So if you don't have a work with flow in what you want to develop, you are going to progress very slowly. Actually, the great pianists, inventors, entrepreneurs, they concentrate absolutely in what they do. And this is mindfulness, to focus so much in what you are doing that you and the task are the same thing. In the same way that a monk is meditating and he melts with the environment, the same when you are doing something you love. If you have mindfulness, you are going to flow with this activity, and then you're going to have excellent progress.
See, yeah. Thank you. There's another relevant question. Ishita asks, how can I find my Ikigai while doing the same things day after day? Yeah,
Yes.
you just spoke about it 5 minutes back. So very shortly, if you can tell
But
why.
if you do the same things day after day, it means that you are doing with the same mindset. I always tell to my students when we are talking about jobs that when I was in university, I was working many years as a waiter, and this is repetitive. I was working in a camping every summer, and I was the first. I was in the first shift, so there were many lonely people who came for the first coffee of the day, and I was there alone behind the bar. I can take it as a very mechanical job and your coffee, or I can take it as something spiritual, as a challenge. And so what I did was that my challenge was to make some difference in the morning of this person. So if this lonely old man that was spending the summer in the camping came at 6 o'clock and was ordering a coffee, I didn't give only a coffee. I gave the coffee. I was talking to him, explaining some news, something funny that I have heard. And then if I noticed that this man was coming back to the tent with a different state of mind, then I felt successful. So even that giving a coffee to a person can have a spiritual meaning. So when you are doing every day apparently the same, actually you are having a lot of opportunity to making a better world because you're working with the emotions of other people. So nothing is always the same. It depends on your challenge.
Hmm. That's quite interesting. There's a lady called Nidhi who asks us, is it important to alienate yourself to be able to find your Ikigai? We are often colored with things and people around us in our opinion of happiness. Do you think, like for example, in Indian classical regimens, there is something called a 40-day, the word is chila. Yeah, and for 40 days,
Retreat.
it's a retreat. You go in, if you're a tabla player, if you're a mridangam player, if you're a harmonium player, irrespective, you go in and for 40 days, that is all you do. You either sleep or you play. Yeah. So is it important to alienate yourself?
This is very hard for modern times. It's possible to do it, of course, at retreat. Actually, mindfulness, the retreats of mindfulness are very hard because you are 5 days, 10 days in total silence, and we are not used to silence. And when we are silent, when we are not talking with anyone, not physically and not with devices, then the brain is talking, the mind is talking to us, and then we discover many things that maybe we don't want to discover. But maybe you don't need to alienate, to be isolated 2 weeks. It would be enough if 1 hour every day you can do only that thing. If you want to be an excellent pianist or an excellent writer, and for you every day there is a sacred hour in which you only do that and you do it every day, it is enough to progress. Then if you have holiday and you can take a holiday for you 1 week and you go to a hut, to some faraway place, and you are in a more crash course, in an intensive activity, it's okay. But I think it's more useful to have this hour every day, this Kaizen approach to progress.
Thank you, thank you. There was actually a question. Somebody says, how to attain the flow state? Is it natural or habitually conditioned? I think
yes, this is interesting. The flow state has been studied very much. Actually, in the book Flow, Mihai is mentioning an experiment that was very interesting, that they measured states of flow in some thousands of workers. And they discovered that many of them were flowing in the moment of solving a problem in jobs. So maybe an informatic or an artist or a consultant was in front of a challenge, in front of a problem, and in the moment of eureka, that they say, okay, we are going to do it like this. This was a flow of happiness, very important, because they were totally mindful in that. So I would say that we can promote flow, switching off focuses of attention, doing only one thing at the same time with all our energy, with all our heart, and choosing well the subject of our attention. Mihai says that to gain a state of flow, we need something that is not very easy, and this is not very difficult. If the thing is too easy, if a great musician is playing song for children, it's like it's something robotic, can do it without any thinking. But if you do something that is too difficult for you, then it's stressful. It comes anxiety. You must find something in the middle, that the challenge is a bit difficult, a bit more than what you know, but that it still motivates you.
That's really interesting. It's very important to be motivated. Pallavi has an interesting one. Loving what you do versus doing what you love. Mm-hmm. These may be two different things, but she says both are Ikigai. But which one is the true Ikigai?
Both are true Ikigai, because both are interrelated. If you love what you do, you can also do what you love with everything, because there are people that say, I will be happy when I work in this kind of company with this kind of thing, when I have a different responsibility. But this is a way to postpone success and happiness. You must love every little thing that you do. So I would say that people who love simply what they do, they are more connected to Ikigai than people who only are happy when they do what they love, and it must be only this thing. I think you must enjoy the process. In the big companies, in Spain, for instance, there is this Zara. This is a big chain of shops. When you are going to direct a big shop, you must have experience in every position. You must work in the casting center. You must be selling individually. You must be offices. You must be in every place to understand how the company works. And it's the same with our life. If we are only happy when we are doing this thing, and the other things we don't appreciate it, we are never going to develop fully our Ikigai, because Ikigai is putting passion in everything what you do, and you try to put the direction in the thing that you love more. But there are a lot of things that must be done that theoretically they are not easy, or they are not a pleasure. When you practice a martial art, you are not in a fight from the first moment. You must run around the dojo and practice flexibility and practice the katas. So if you don't love every part of the process, the whole Ikigai don't work.
That is so wonderfully put across. There are two or three questions which have come around grief.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is a fact that, mental health is becoming an issue. It's a taboo in our country. It's a taboo across. People don't really talk about it. Pharmaceutical organizations are selling SSRIs across the counter. So that's where the numbers could say we are a happy country, but if everyone is hopped on to SSR as it becomes tough. So somebody is asking over here, how long does it take to come out of grief and discover your Ikigai? Because obviously when your energies are pulled down, then it's tough to find that reason to wake up.
Yes,
in the morning.
I think the biggest discoveries in life and have come after big difficulties. Everyone knows that the big success of Steve Jobs was after being fired from his own company. And in a small scale, it happens in everyone's life. When you lose everything, then starts the crossing of the desert. And this is very typical of religions. Moises and Buddha had had to walk in the path a lot of years to attain illumination. So when you are very low in life and you feel that you are unlucky and that you are not having pleasure and happiness, maybe you are starting to build the most important project of your life. And for instance, the painter Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter, she discovered that she loved painting after a very big accident in a bus that she lost mobility, and she was many months with a lot of pain and in a different life what she was used to. And then she discovered that she wanted to do the rest of her life was to paint. And without this accident, she wouldn't have discovered that. So sometimes we need to lose everything to make this white canvas possible and to say, okay, I have lost all this. My former life is not here anymore. So what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And so from grief, from unfortunate events, you can do something much more authentic than before.
That's actually quite lovely. So I have two more questions for you. One of them is from a student who's come. So YI has got Young Indians has been running one of the largest leadership programs called Yuva. Yuva in English means youth. So one of the questions which has come up from one of the young viewers of this conversation is that from a student's point of view, wanting to explore the future career, how can I face the current pandemic situation with the right kind of Ikigai?
Yes, the current pandemic situation has given us more time to think because we were doing many things. We were traveling, going here, there, and then our movements were restricted. And this was bad and this was good because then we had more time to be on the sofa. Maybe we are watching TV, but we also had time to develop things that were important but not urgent. And I would say if you are a student or you are thinking right now of your career, now is the perfect moment because the world is changing very much and very quickly. We don't know how it will be, but actually the world will be what we want it to be because it will be the sum, the addition of every Ikigai of every person. So I would say that in times of crisis, the only thing you can do is to follow your purpose because there is no safety anywhere. You cannot say, if I go to Tata Industries, I will have my life solved. No, maybe it's not like this. So maybe it's better to ask, what is my highest power? What is the best thing I can do for me, for the world? How can I explore it? How can I be the best in this? And then you follow your track and the world will change, but you will always adapt to that. So I think this is the time of self-progress because the progress of the world, nobody knows, but it will be the addition of all individual self-progresses.
I think that is so important. For now, my last question. I know you mentioned a lot about this in your book. You've spoken about Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, various different practices. which are coming. There's Nahid, who is asking, are there any rituals or techniques of mindful recreation? Are there any specific timings or any time? What is the minimum duration of practice? So if you can just very quickly show us one or two things that we can consciously practice to be in the moment, to not be running around in the future or in the past, because stress comes there. Yeah, so what can we do? Like, just show us one or two things before we close it.
We can think of 2-3 things around the day. The first thing we could do is this habit of the successful people. Start the day not running to the computer and to answer the emails so quickly, but 15, 20 minutes to start the day, to sit quietly with your cup of tea and with a notebook and to say, okay, what is the priority today? Maybe to put one. Maybe you have a work, you have a job, but what is your personal priority today? Maybe it's to read a couple of chapters of a book and take some notes. Maybe it's calling this mentor that is going to give you some clue of what you are doing. Maybe it is to practice Aikido or to practice meditation. So put in your notebook, what is something that you don't want to finish the day without having done it? And then I would say during the day to establish 2, 3, 4 moments of reflection alone and in company. Maybe if you live with your couple, to have this half an hour, this hour in which every device will be switched off and you just talked about your life, about your future, about projects, about creative things. And then maybe in the middle of the day, after your work, if you're going to the office, to give a walk and to be on the street and looking at the colors and looking at the people. I think a mindful style of living, it depends on very simple things, but the program will be different for every person. For instance, reading a little bit before going to bed is much better than being stressed answering to messages. So think of life like a martial art, that are something that must be done the best way possible.
Yes, absolutely. Great, thank you. This is so fantastic for actually, and this is what is so beautiful about finding your Ikigai, because it is so simple. It is like, I love that phrase in the book, that it is so simple that it's almost stupid to even ask. You know?
Yes, yeah, you define it very nice.
It are these small steps, and it's really finding that pleasure in the small steps, really finding your Zen, your centered space. And
taking control of your life instead of having life moving you from here to there, knowing every day what is important for you. That would be the main lesson. And following your own flow.
Yes, absolutely. This is so wonderful, Francis. Thank you so much for engaging in this conversation with us. We had over 130 people who were really listening in. Our phones have been completely busy since the time we launched this initiative. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to ask Varun Jain, who's the chair for YI Delhi, to wrap up the session with his closing notes.
Just quick correction, Weber from YI Calcutta.
Sorry, Weber from YI Calcutta. I stand corrected.
All of us here together. On behalf of Young Indians nationally, on behalf of CII, IWN, and most importantly, the UA students, sir, it has been an excellent session. A lot of discussions and a lot of sparking of minds, igniting the spark in our minds, and from mindfulness to thoughts about how we can finally go and start our journey towards finding our Ikigai. I think all of us have started our journey today with this session. A very, very, very thank you to you, sir, for taking out time. And we are sure many of us have read your book, and the ones who have not will definitely catch a copy of it after this session.
Yes.
Thank you so much for guiding us. Thank you, Vikram, for being a wonderful host.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your lovely attention. It was very nice to have so good questions and so much attention and so much mindfulness during our meeting.
Thank you so much. It is so wonderful. How do we get in touch with you? Can we write to you on Facebook, or if one wants to interact, if somebody wants to ask you a question, how does one get in touch with you?
Yes, if they want to put me a question, maybe they can come into my Instagram, or they can they can go to my English Facebook. There is a Francesc Miralles English Facebook. They can write there, or if they go to my homepage, they will find also a link to my email, so that they can comment what they like.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. And thank you so much for agreeing that we can get in touch with you. I know I have a lot of questions because I was able to find, so please allow me to get in touch with you.
Of course, we'll be in touch.
Great.
You have conducted the session exceptionally interesting. It was very nice, with a good flow. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Vikram, for being a wonderful host and for being here with us. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
Raji.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.